gosh, I think it actually works. Hold on one second, and we'll go live just early a little bit because it's here. And oh, hold on, it's loading. It'll give it a second. There we go. Hey,
Hey, there we go.
that's amazing. Okay, wait. I'm getting dual desktop audio. Okay, I'll turn that one off, and we're good. Okay, I think that should be fine. And welcome everybody to the chat room. I'm trying out a new setup to try and get this. And you look fantastic. Look at that. It's clear and yeah, it looks really good. You very well could. Hold on one second. I'm going to switch back to. Yeah, no, we're on right now. I brought us up live because yeah. Good morning, everybody. Hi, welcome. That's okay. That's all right. Right on. Right. No problem.
Just to tell me about how things are down there.
You got it. And I'm just bringing you in an audio now, so the chat will should start to hear you just fine. And there you go. I'm testing
Let me grab my headphones.
Yeah, that's great.
See if that'll work.
And we'll just look at wonderful Kiev in the background. Is it rainy there? It seems to be rainy.
It's a little bit. A little bit. We've been getting some spring showers.
Excellent. And hi chat room, welcome. Good morning. This is HAL Sparks Mornings Mega Worldwide. I kind of jumped right in because I'm testing a new setup so that we can hear and see Phil a little bit clearer. And I figure if this works for today, it should technically work for radio and all that stuff going forward. If it sounds all right to you, you know, on your end, Phil, let me know. And he's putting his headphones in, so give him a second, and he should be. Is it nice? Is it clear?
Have I got you? I don't know.
Did I hear me? You? Check it 1, check it 2, check it 3 and 4, check it 1, check it 2, and check it 2. I'm checking the sound for Philip right now. Good morning, everyone. Hello to you. Can he not? I don't think he can hear me because the singing is too charming to not notice. Is it? Nope. Okay. You can in the setting. Later.
No, since I'm so short today.
Don't worry about that part. You should have.
We'll work out the bugs later.
Yes, there should be a thing called additional controls on your window, and under that should be audio settings. And if you click on that, it should give you the ability to choose what you want, where your headphones are going. It'll default to it initially on your phone probably, and so that's how you would fix it in future. We can do it before a show next time around. It's totally cool.
Yeah, let's save it for another time, and maybe Saturday.
You sound great, so it's all good, and it looks good, and you can hear me okay? Everything's smooth in that regard?
Yeah, I mean, it's just the background noise of the street, so.
Gotcha.
But this will be my penultimate time with you, Hal, from Kiev. From Ukraine, because I booked my flight back to the States. I fly back next Wednesday, so
wow,
for about a 2 or 3 week period in the States. I'll be in Michigan first, and then I'll be in San Francisco, and then I'll drive down to LA.
Excellent. Well, I depending on your timing. If you're in San Francisco, Nerd Halen is playing in San Francisco. We're opening for Enough's Enough. I like if the timing works out, we'll figure it out off air.
What's the date?
Let's see. I'm getting.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. And by the way, are you guys getting an echo per chance coming out to you guys? I hear one, but it might just be on my end, and that's totally fine. I'm just checking with the. Okay, great. Thanks, Kelly. Yes, there will be a meet and greet and all that kind of stuff. Let's see. I have to look it up even because I have all my news things open. Nerd Halen, enough's enough. We're opening for them. Let's see. The 26th. Yeah.
26. I'll probably be in LA.
All right. Well, I will be there the day or after or before. So totally cool. We'll manage. We'll manage to hang. And by the way, welcome everybody. This is Philip Ittner. He's joining us live from Kiev. Let's see, you're flying on next Wednesday, so radio would be good this weekend, and then next week you'll be on a flight. So very exciting.
I'll be on a flight, but I'll arrive. I'll be. Oh no, it'll be too late.
Yeah.
Well, I could maybe do your afternoon show on Wednesday.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea. Either way, like I would, I'm almost like
it'll be from Chicago, but
yeah. Well, what we'll do is we'll save up and have you in person someplace.
Sure.
And yeah, totally good. And welcome, like I said, welcome everybody again. And catch us up on the last little bit. I have been doing interestingly enough, a Bellingcat deep dive on our friends Aaron Mate and WikiLeaks on their alignment. Kind of chasing down leads on a couple of things on my own, on their alignment with with Channel 1 and the straight up Russian line. It's kind of obvious for a long time, if you've been paying attention, but it's gotten in the light of the Ukraine war, it's gotten more egregious because I think they could tap dance around Syria and a couple of other things, knowing that the American public wouldn't be as engaged as we are with what's going on in Ukraine, and certainly not the government as engaged. And so they were able to kind of slip through, what I would call what Steve Bannon called recently flooding the zone with shit, but they would call disinfo, like spreadaganda or amplifaganda. That's what it was. So
yeah.
These guys are amplifagandists. That's what Aaron Mate is. It's what Beasley is. It's what Beasley, whatever. The woman who was meeting with Assad before the chemical attack in the name of peace, which worked out so well. And then of course backing, they're the ones who view themselves as far left, but use the term Russiagate all the time, which is the Trump defense phrase. People who call it's the same people who say the Ukraine say Russiagate, right?
Yeah, well, the whole flooding the zone with information is actually, the origins of that are actually, or at least the technique that the GRU uses was actually started at the very tail end of the Soviet Union.
Right.
Was that they got to a point where they figured that they couldn't, because of the underground information railroad that was going on in the Soviet Union at the very tail end of the Soviet Union, where they would even be using old, roller, almost mimeograph kind of Xerox machines they'd listen to Voice of America, and then they do these little mimeograph rollouts of leaflets that they would hand out. And the Soviet leadership decided that because they couldn't effectively defend against that, they couldn't stop it, that what they decided to do was just to put out their own sources of misinformation, and that they figured instead of trying to control it, what they would do is just create white noise.
Right.
And it would be so deafening that nobody would know what the truth was. And so this is absolutely an FSB GRU technique that they've refined over the years, and now with the internet are at a point where they can do it so effectively. And yeah, that's what they do.
Right.
It's exactly what they do.
It's fascinating to me that this methodology is so ham-handed in a modern context. It totally makes sense back then, because I think one of the things that, and this is something that I think people can look out for, and you and I have kind of discussed on air about this, about the messaging from Channel 1 and how they manipulated the election on our end by flooding garbage onto social media. That one of the things that they learned, I think, from that leaflet thing was not to do their counter leaflets, but to make fake leaflets that look like nearly identical, but are full of, garbage, misinformation stuff.
Right.
Just simple.
Instead of trying to target an opposing and somebody else's, or the truth, basically. Well, instead of trying to target somebody else's messaging, they just figured it would be better for them to just send out so much information, misleading information, that nobody knew what to believe in, and by so doing, there would be no such thing as truth. But speaking about Channel One, I don't know if you saw this thing that Julia Davis, God bless her, put out. I think it's probably about 18 hours ago, maybe 24 hours ago, of Sobolyev's show, his evening show, with the guy who wears the kind of bizarre Napoleonic kind of double buttoned.
Right.
The guy's a freak job.
The Beatles jacket meets the Mao jacket. Right.
His show put out something, and Julia translated and put it out there. And if you haven't seen it, or if anybody who's listening hasn't seen it, I strongly advise you to go look at Julia Davis's Russian Media Watch and watch it, because they openly say, and nothing goes on that channel that isn't approved by the Kremlin. So just, it's the rare moment when somebody speaks out of turn on that show, and they openly say, we need to start subverting democracies in the West.
Yes.
Notably, Italy in particular. They said we think that that's a weak link, and that they will then drive a wedge within the Western alliance in Europe. But then they openly also talked about our elections and said, we need to interfere in America's elections. We need to return Trump. Hopefully Trump, even if we're not able to return Trump, that the kind of MAGA movement will hopefully, we can lean into it. We can use it. We can drive a wedge between the Americans, and we can create civil war in America. And wouldn't that be a great thing?
Right.
They're openly saying it. They're not even pretending anymore. They're openly saying, we are going to subvert democracies. We are going to mess up elections. We are going to try and create civil war and civil discord within the democracies in the West.
Right.
And they're just openly saying it now. So if anybody's out there thinking that,
and not on the and not even with the pretense of, well, they've been saying we're doing it, so we might as well do it. Where where the accusation's like, we did this before, and we
need to do it again, and we need to do more of it.
Yes, exactly. Right. I just tweeted that out earlier, by the way, about 3 hours ago. I will retweet it right now so people see it again up in their feed. But Tucker and Tulsi Gabbard both get name checks.
They bring up Tucker. They bring up Tulsi.
In that video, they describe Trump's primary mission, as far as they're concerned, as destroying the United States. Literally, that's his purpose, is just wreck it. It's not, and that's the thing about the idea that Trump is somehow a, quote, Russian asset. When most people think of an asset, they think of like a turned spy or something. And in their estimation, he's more like a pipe bomb. They don't care as long as there's damage. It's not they basically view him as an electoral version of the bombing they're doing in Ukraine. It's about decimation.
And I also find it really interesting that they know Tucker by name, they know Tulsi by name, that they're paying the vast majority of the American population. If you can name one Russian politician or figurehead aside from Putin, I'll be astounded.
Right.
But these guys are so fixated on us because they see us as their primary enemy in the world. And it's not like their primary adversary. We're past that now.
Yeah.
They are openly saying that we are at war with the United States. The Russians are openly saying that is their mindset. That is their mentality. We are past the point of like, oh, we're adversaries. Oh, we have different interests, and they conflict against one another. They are openly saying, they've been saying it for years, but now they've gotten to the point where they are literally saying we're at war with America. Right. And we had better wake up to that mentality being really prevalent, because Channel One is not some obscure, it's not OAN. It is
Yeah.
like it would be like a CNN
Right.
or
The
ABC,
most
NBC, CBS.
Yeah, the most ubiquitous channel. See, it would be CNN. It
Yeah,
would
I mean, you
effectively
turn it
be,
on,
yeah, it's
it's
state
what you're going to
CNN.
see. Yeah, and they're openly saying something that they've been saying for years within certain sectors, but now they're at the point where they're openly saying we are at war with America, and that is not a rare mentality in
No.
Russia, and we had better wake up to the fact that they already consider themselves at war with us and respond accordingly. And I'm not saying we respond with the idea that we're at war with them, but
Right.
we need to accept that they think they're at war with us
Yeah.
and they are going to act in such a fashion. And we had better wake up to that before the midterms, and certainly before 2024. They're going to do everything in their power to subvert our democracy, to attack civil society, to drive a wedge between communities, to exacerbate the divide between right and left. They're at it. They are 100%,
Right.
code red, DEFCON 1. For them, they are 100%, in their minds, at war with us. And I don't say that we respond in kind, but I think we better accept the fact that that's where their heads are at.
Yeah, no question. And like I said, the good part about it is that I think in many ways they've taken for granted the damage they were able to do during the Trump years, and that trolling and that kind of stuff really did have a much bigger impact. Like, we are past the days where CNN is automatically putting up, like, Gabe 207 from Illinois up on the screen and going, this Twitter person on our followers says this about the issue, or taking like a C-SPAN open lines approach to social media. That has gone away. And now they're having to be trickier about it. And the point I was getting to about them taking the leaflets and not just making an alt leaflet or one from in French and blah blah, like we're being inundated, you don't know what to believe. What you do is you take the American leaflets being dropped, and then you make an exact copy of it, except for two details that you know for a fact are not true, and that the average Russian will know is not true. And therefore, when they read it, they will go, well, that's not true, so the rest of it must be BS as well. And it's way
Yeah.
more effective than just doing the Americans are flooding this, don't believe these leaflets. It's way more effective.
It goes back to my point. It goes back to my point of them studying us as much as they do. They know exactly how to hit us. They
Right.
know they're not they are not inept at this.
Right.
I was going to say they're not subtle. They aren't subtle because they don't know what subtlety is, but they are very cunning, and they know exactly how to get to a point where they know that they can just plant a seed and then let it grow, and it will grow. We ourselves will foster it, and they're well aware of that. And so all they have to do is just start things rolling, and we'll take it from there.
Right.
But they know exactly how to do it. So
Well,
we really need to be very much more media savvy in America. We need to understand that this is in their
Right.
minds, an active war, and that first and foremost, it's an information war, and they're going to do everything that they possibly can to confuse us, to make us angry at the other side, to make us look. I mean, I see things that are being said by. Primarily, I see it on the other side of the aisle when it comes to the Republicans,
sure.
openly saying that, like, the Squad or AOC or whoever they don't like, Adam Schiff or whoever, that they're the enemy.
Yes.
They love that kind of talk.
Yeah.
That they aren't just Americans who have difference of opinions, that they are the enemy. And the right has taken to that like a duck to water, and it's been like, they are not just Americans who have a different opinion than me. They are not Americans with a different political persuasion. They are my enemy.
Yes.
And it's
yesterday
playing right into their hands.
Yeah. Yesterday, I did a clip of Ben Shapiro talking about it was initially about Al Gore and climate change, but it took him 6 minutes to get to the Al Gore clip and showing a bunch of other people. And the idea, he showed like Kamala Harris and some others talking about, we as as not just Americans, but as Earthlings having to tackle certain issues, be they cultural or climate. And the way Ben Shapiro was translating it for his viewers was they mean you are the ones that are wrong, and therefore they are calling for violence against you and driving us a division in us and asking for civil war. When in reality, if you listen to the clips that he plays himself, not even the extended ones in context, but the actual pieces he put on, which was Pete Buttigieg, Kamala Harris, and Al Gore, the language is so over the top that he's using as far as his interpretation that and that's really I don't think he's stupid enough to actually believe that. I know he thinks it sells, but I think he also knows that a big portion of his audience responds to that, and they enjoy it, they believe it, and they do. This Civil War mentality is like they're only going to be okay with it if the other side is the one that we see as starting it. And so they're trying to gin this part of it up, and he's participating in this projection defense concept, or projection offense, where they're attacking me, therefore I am justified in defending myself, and therefore it's an organic civil war that happened because I'm just defending myself, instead of him projecting violence onto another person. And it fits right into what you're talking about.
Yeah. Whether it's the Second Amendment, or whether it's critical race theory, or trans rights, or now Roe v. Wade, or whatever it is, these hot button these hot button issues, which the right is now, it has been for quite some time, saying that, well, I mean, obviously the left is going to come and do these sweeping, it's just they're going to change America completely, and they're coming for us, and they have an aggressive, offensive attitude against us, and so we had better, take it to them first sort of mentality. That plays right into what the Russians love to do, and I don't know how much I know that they are doing it. How much it's having an effect, I don't know, and how much of it is actually homegrown, I don't know. But it's the two are they're marching in lockstep together. Russia, we have got to get past the point of thinking that Russia is maybe they're meddling, or maybe they're like 2016. We got Trump because of Russia.
Yes.
It was such a close election that I whenever I say that to people, they're like, well, no, there was this and there was that and there was the other thing. Yes, no one thing contributed to Trump, but when it was so close as the way it was, that to consider that all the things that Russia was doing in the run up to 2016, they definitely, if they were taken out of the equation, it is quite possibly we could have dodged that bullet. We'll never know.
Right.
But we need to stop thinking that they're small-time players when it comes to that sort of thing. That militarily, they've been proven to be a kind of a paper tiger because of the corruption and the kleptocracy in Russia. That their military is not what we thought it was, and we feared it was. The Ukrainians are doing a very good job of exposing the weaknesses within Russia. They're not the first ones to do it. I mean, I hearken back to 100 years ago, the Bolshevik revolution trying to take over Poland. The Poles stopped the combined Soviet, Russia and Ukrainian republics.
Right.
So it's not impossible that this kind of thing can happen. But militarily, they've been shown not to be so red hot. But we cannot underestimate them when it comes to their propaganda, their information warfare, their psyops. They are excellent at it. And again, it's due in no small part to the fact that they focus on us with such intensity, almost exclusively, in fact. They know all of our buttons. They know all the cracks, all the places to drive wedges between us.
Right.
So, we need to start being very aware of this.
Agreed. We are also very we're wide open about that stuff anyways. We openly discuss our divisions and our political differences in the press. And I would argue, and I think you know, not to put words in your mouth, but you would too, that that is an integral part of democracy, and that's good. The fact that we can and that we do have these
Yes.
shows. I mean, as ridiculous as Fox is, the existence of it proves that it's a lie to start with, because it, just like Alex Jones does, the existence of Alex Jones on the air in the United States in any number of ways over the last couple of decades proves the lie to what he's actually saying. You know, because had what he was saying been even 10% true, some cabal of deep staters would have wiped him out years ago. They wouldn't have let him
Yeah.
hang around. So, but Russia, on the other hand, don't speak out or you're gone. I was just reading this story last year in October. This 35-year-old diplomat, Russian diplomat in Berlin, fell onto the sidewalk off of a balcony from the actual from the actual embassy itself, from like the top floor of the embassy itself. Okay, there's like 9 feet between the wall and the gate, and this dude landed in a 4 or 5 story building, landed 11 feet from where he fell. And and by the way, the Russians, right outside the Russian embassy, they scooped him up. They never allowed an autopsy, and they flew the body back because he was under diplomatic protection. That dude, and this was in October of last year. And there, you know, the belief around, you know, like in the articles that I've read is that a lot of people think that this guy, first of all, he was the son of a big FSB dude and had been given this position. And the belief was that, yeah, he was there as a diplomat, but he was really a spy. And there was a belief that he was turning, and that part of his turning was telling people, hey, this Ukraine buildup that they're starting to plan is coming. That he was one of the people that was in the process of possibly tipping off people that this was for real. And he ended up falling off a balcony and drifting with the wind. Yeah, as John heard, you know, 11 and a half feet over a spiked fence. And then, I mean, if that had happened in the United States,
I mean, there was a guy who fell at the Russian embassy in New York the day of the 2016 election returns.
Right. Yeah. I mean, even if you look at what's the biggest comparable story in the United States would be the Seth Rich story, that Fox made a big deal that this is part of the Clinton body count and that they were doing all this stuff.
Right.
The very possibility, not only that it, you know, like was reported for real, is that he was more than likely held up in a part of DC that happens in, and he didn't have anything, so they just killed him and took off, which is DC, and he was at like 2:00 in the morning. But on top of that, they thought the storyline that you kept hearing over and over is that he was bringing, you know, this information out of the DNC to give to somebody, and they killed him for it or whatever. Well, first of all, if he was giving it to them, why would they be killing him for it? Secondly, how would they know if he wasn't involved in some sort of sting, I suppose? The other part is that what if this dude just was bringing stuff to the people he thought he was whistleblowing to, and it turned out to be a couple of Russians, and he's like,
I used to say that. I used to say that to all my my MAGA associates, people I know who are MAGA.
Yeah.
And they would bring up that, they would bring that up, and I would say, yeah, boy, it does sound like an assassination. Sounds like just something the GRU would do.
Exactly.
I'm sure that, there's definitely a possibility that the Russians assassinated him, and their heads would explode, and they would go, no, he was assassinated by the Democrats. He was assassinated by Clinton. I said, well, no, I'm willing to entertain the idea that he was assassinated, but I think it was the Russians who did it. And they would just go, no, that doesn't fit our narrative.
Right. Well, and also, ultimately, what the stuff that he was supposedly sharing with the world would not have wrecked her campaign. None of what he was carrying ultimately would have had the impact worthy of his death. by any measure. So even the Democrats would be going like, all right, we need damage control, but not that level of damage control. However, if the Russians wanted this stuff and they were going to do what I was saying with the leaflets, which is what they've done with the alleged Hunter Biden laptop stuff, which is find some real stuff, put in fake stuff. Nobody wants to talk about it, so you can't even deny it. It's the same thing with the Podesta emails and all that stuff. The reason people go, I'm not commenting on it, is because if you called Mitch McConnell a prick in something, that's problematic and difficult for you. And if they mixed in, he's a prick, also I was involved in stealing money from Saudi Arabia, like in the same email, you're like, I'm not talking about any of that crap. It's all like, that's how you have to deal with it. You have to, because then then they go, all right, well, let's sit down, and you have to pick through what you did say and what you did say out of 10,000 emails or whatever. And you're like, all right, I'm not going to gut myself because these idiots decided to create deep fakes around me. Like, it's a trap they know well, and it's easy to play out. And that stuff that Seth Rich supposedly was delivering, while it wouldn't have been damaging in its original form in any major way to Hillary Clinton or the Clinton campaign or even the Democrats, ultimately, it would if you added stuff to it and mix and matched. I tell this story a few years ago. It was a great lesson. I was this comic that I knew, and we were arranging a show, and I sent her an email saying it's on the 3rd and da-da-da-da. And then her response to me was, how dare you talk to me like that? And I went, what are you talking about? And she goes, and then she quoted language from the previous email that just like where I called her like horrible names and the C word and all kinds of stuff. And I was like, I didn't write that. And she goes, I know, but I gotcha. And what she had done is basically she didn't reply to my email. She copied and faked a reply just by sending it back in. And in that email chain, it just looked like my email was sitting there. Now, if you looked, you'd see the little side part. It wasn't hard to look up. But if you're 8 years deep in some emails from somebody else, you can totally get away with it. And especially if you read the Washington Post story about the alleged laptop, which involves a hard drive titled laptop. But
with more gigs than actually the laptop
exactly could have held.
I mean, the whole thing.
Yeah, it's silly. So are you in Kiev for the rest of the run?
I am in Kiev. I am in Kiev now.
Yeah.
I will probably get closer to Poland before my exit date, just because it's such a journey to go all the way to Kiev, from Kiev all the way to Warsaw, where I fly out. So I'll probably go head to Lviv for a while, a couple days before I cross the border and go to Poland, and fly out. So
is it all ground
transport? And I was thinking about leaving. I have a feeling we're going to get hit tomorrow. I think there's a very good chance that we're going to see a very active day tomorrow, because tomorrow is a very new holiday that has been created by President Zelensky. Zelensky declared that he wanted to have the 28th, which is an important day on the church calendar, but also to be recognized as a state holiday, as the day of Ukrainian statehood. It's basically state independence.
Right.
And so it is the first year of this new holiday, which Zelensky proposed and which was, rubber stamped basically through the parliament. But it's the first year of this new holiday. The holiday is a direct FU to Russia.
Sure.
It is a declaration of our independence and our statehood, and it was created by Zelensky. So all of these things play into something that the Russians love, as we've discussed in the past. The Russians do like to send to do symbolic attacks, to go in conjunction with their messaging about what they did when they sent the hypersonic into Odessa after the Ukrainians sank their tug that was going to resupply Snake Island. When we started using the HIMARS and they hit Venezia, basically to say there is no safe. If you're trying to tell us there's no safe space behind our lines, behind our Russian lines, then we're going to send the same message to you, and hit in a place where you wouldn't think we'd hit because it's far away from the lines and is not a military target. So they hit Venetia. They message with their attacks.
Right.
So I had considered getting out of here before tomorrow, because the 28th is the day of this new holiday. But I'm going to stick it out. I have other things that I plan on doing here, and also, you know, I don't like being bullied.
Right.
So, you know.
Well, then, great. Thanks for giving us another
if
thing
we
to
do
worry
get
about.
hit, I promise. I make this promise: if we do get hit, as soon as I know that we got hit, if I'm aware of it, if I'm not, you know, sound asleep, if they hit us overnight, I promise to get on Twitter and let everybody know I'm safe.
Please do. Because that's our primary concern, as you know.
But I don't know for sure. I'm reading maybe tea leaves. Maybe I'm being overly cautious. I have this tingling. I have my spidey senses tingling.
Yes.
And theory, I think we might have something happen tomorrow.
In theory, I don't think you can be overly cautious in a war zone. I don't think that's possible. I mean, I suppose if you stayed hunkered down when people are telling you to move, specifically, because you don't want to go outside, that would be the one area. But other than that, follow your instincts, and it's always good. And by the way, hello chat room. I'm not ignoring you. We just have a limited time with Philip this morning because he's got obviously big underground.
Well, I do want to. I want to talk to my friends that just came from the Southern Front, and that's another topic I want to make sure that we sneak in here, because there's a lot of talk in the last 24 hours about this bridge that the Ukrainians apparently have damaged to such an extent that it is, even though the Russians are admitting it is now, it's really pretty much unusable. And this is a bridge. It's called the Antonovsky Bridge. It crosses the Dnieper, and it's one of I think 2 or 3 crossing points in an area along the front line in Kherson, where the Ukrainians are trying to push for a variety of reasons, not least of which it's the source of the fresh water, the canal that goes to Crimea. But the Russians find themselves in a precarious spot when it comes to Kherson and the Kherson region, because they clearly want to annex Kherson. And in order to do that, they're going to have what they always do is their BS elections, quote unquote, or referendums.
Yeah.
In order to do that, they need to have the entire oblast, the entire region, what they call oblast, we would call states. Yeah. I guess, districts, whatever. But the problem with Kherson is that as it's drawn on the map now, there is a sliver of the Kherson Oblast that is on the western side of the river. So in order for them to have a BS referendum, which will legitimize annexing the oblast, they have to control this sliver on the western side of the river. So they have soldiers on the western side of the Dnieper River, right, so that they can hold their BS referendum. Well, the Ukrainians smartly have decided that what they're going to do is cut off the river, and that sliver, which has maybe 3,000, 5,000 soldiers, Russian soldiers in it, get cut off from their escape route back to the rest of the oblast, and then they can just surround them and conquer them. So they're caught in a catch-22, the Russians. They can't leave the western banks of the Dnieper River because they want to have their BS referendum, and they need to have the entire control, ostensibly control of the entire oblast to do it. But they know that those guys are hanging out on a very, very thin limb of that they're in a precarious spot. So if they do really, if they've cut off the Antonovsky Bridge, if they cut off another bridge south of it, and if they control the Ukrainians, the dam that can also act as a crossing point, then they're going to have about 5,000 Russian soldiers on the western banks of the Dnieper who are going to be just swept up. So There's a lot of activity, and it's worth paying attention to what's happening in Kherson.
Yeah.
So that's why I want to go have dinner with these guys who just came here as they're coming to Kiev, and then they're going to leave tomorrow. So I only have the opportunity tonight.
Great. Well, I will be fascinated to hear about that. I'm sure
We'll talk about it on Saturday. I'll tell you what I find out.
And then of course I would recommend at least a quick like update vlog on your YouTube page to just, fire up a camera wherever you are and go, this is basically what I'm hearing, and that's me being producer. I think it would be worthwhile.
Yeah. I've already planned on doing kind of like a reflection on the last 5 months as well. So I'll be doing that on my YouTube channel before too long. But
excellent.
I wanted to bring up that. I wanted to bring up Julia Davis's thing. I wanted to bring up the potential attack tomorrow. But if there's anything, got about another 10 or 15 minutes here. If somebody has a question or if you have something you want to talk about. Those were the talking points I wanted to talk about.
Well, somebody just brought this up. Rosebud in the chat said, Q people say Ukrainian soldiers are zombies. This, I have to say, was one of the weirder side stories I had been going over in the last 48 hours. Was that QAnon, the whole QAnon thing? The one thing about it is kind of like the idea of the Wuhan virus as a bioweapon. You can't release something like that without blowback. That the idea that you could just do this unless you had a perfect vaccine already staged to get rid of it, and you can't do that with any idea viruses. Certainly, you can do it with a disease in theory. We've all seen Mission Impossible 2, but you can't do it with an idea virus. And releasing the QAnon stuff or boosting it, the problem is because the Russians had access to YouTube just like everybody else did for a good long while. They built their own little Q crowd as well as ours, and they would interact. Well, those folks think that the Ukrainians soldiers are biolab super soldiers that are already dead. They are they're dead people, and they're zombie fighters, and also, curiously enough, that's the only reason they can justify killing them, because in the beginning, curiously enough, as soon as the war started, all the Q-related Telegram channels that were in Russian, that were pro-Russian, were sending up all these pictures of them arm in arm with Ukrainians and sending up poems for peace and saying, we don't want this to happen. Pray for our country. They were totally against, arguably, the Putin narrative of the denazification, of the demilitarization, of the taking over it. Now they're on board. And the reason they're on board is because you're not really killing people in Ukraine, because those people are already dead. They're vaccine zombies, and I'm sorry, I'm getting lightheaded just talking about it.
This is so detached from reality.
Right.
I don't even know how to respond to that.
Right.
It's just. That's just.
I know. I was like, where, and again, this is something that they fomented over here, because right now we have a bunch of Q Telegram channels that all follow Marjorie Taylor Greene. They're over here. They're all on board with Russia's attack on Ukraine because they think the biolabs and the relation to the Bidens and all that kind of stuff points to the baby-eating cabal Hillary thing, and that the Russians are now, because Trump was friends with Putin, that they're the white hats in this situation. They're the good people in this circumstance, and it's a hard sell. It's a really hard sell for them.
If that was even remotely true, do you not? The level of delusion that it takes to believe that.
Right.
Do you not think that maybe, just maybe, there would be a journalist somewhere, not even a Western journalist, let's say a journalist from a country that has no particular dog in this fight. Let's say, a journalist from Peru, was over here because it's a global story. It's a majorly important story that he doesn't have that somebody somewhere wouldn't report this. But the level, Oh boy.
Yeah.
I mean, I despair. I despair to hear stuff like that
Well,
because
I actually
you're so
feel
detached from reality. Then I mean, you can make up anything then
I
at this
agree,
point.
and here's why I feel okay about it to some degree is because many people are under the strange perception that that the Q thing is only an American problem, that it is somehow unique both to our society and that it is most extreme here. And the curious thing is this, it seems like the Russians have built this like Q Frankenstein, and it is tearing their castle apart in places. It's become an ongoing, and at some point there's good the issue with these things is that it slams up against reality at some point, and you either have a choice. You can get off the train and go, I was a sucker, or you
Yeah.
can level up to, no, you're lying to me, no, it really is happening, and you're part of it now. Like it's Donald Sutherland at the end of fucking Body Snatcher, just
Body snatchers. Yeah.
right.
It's you know we're getting to a point where the people, and look, I do not by any stretch of the imagination believe that this is something that's going to take hold beyond a fringe element, because it's just crazy. But the fact that there are even people who are willing to buy into that just shows you that we have got to deal with information consumption,
Right.
and how it is that people consume information, whether it's from news sources or online or wherever it is. That we have to educate our children in particular,
Yes.
but our population at large. And I've said this for years. I worked in the mainstream media. I worked for Fox. I worked for CBS. And I know the problems that exist within the industry. And I am not going to absolve the industry of its responsibility or of its faults in the way that it conducts itself and tries to disseminate information. And primarily, my argument is that it is now a profit motive. It is not the dissemination of information that is driving our news agencies. But I don't want to go down that road. What I want to say is that what ticks people off when they talk to me about media is that while I acknowledge the shortcomings of broadcast news, the news industry as a whole, I also, and this is where I tread into dangerous territory where people get upset with me, I also argue that you as a consumer of news have a responsibility of your own, and you need to do your due diligence, and you need to educate yourself not only on the news that you're receiving, but on the way that you are receiving said news. And so go to as many different outlets as you possibly can. Don't just rely on one source. If you see something that sounds too outrageous or upsets you too much, go past the headline, actually read, get a second source.
Yep.
Because if it infuriates you, if it elicits an emotional response from you, it is more likely than not the intended purpose is to elicit an emotional and not an intellectual response from you. We need to be better consumers of information.
That's
the
why I always tell them,
responsibility is not solely with the creators of news, but of the consumers of news. So,
well, part of that
we
is
need to get better because zombies, really?
Yeah. Ukrainian soldiers are zombies. They're already dead because of the vaccine, and they are defending the
I mean, come on, man.
The baby eating tunnels underneath the Capitol. Here's the thing though, is that is they're like the dodo bird in the coal mine, like as far as the misinformation and disinformation. They're the ones that go crazy first, whereas the rest of us, there's a trickle down to it. It's why on my show I try to show videos of where these talking points come from and how they kind of like bloviate over time. And it's why I tell everybody that if anybody's giving you a story where they give you a percentage without a base number, you are being manipulated. You are
Yeah.
being told a story. If they don't give you, well, there's 10,000 people in this town, or per capita, it's this, and here's the percentage change, and this is the normal number, versus this, and these are the outlying factors. If they're not doing that whole conversation, they're just going, this is up 20% or this is down 10%, you are being materially manipulated by that story. If there's no baseline in it, that's a fact. The other thing is the third paragraph or the fifth or the seventh, depending on if it's like USA Today or a regular one, is where the yeah buts are in all the articles, where they set up their narrative, they tell you what they're telling you, the basis of the story, they give you the yeah buts. Yeah, but I know the headline says this, but it's not quite that bad. That's just, now that we got your eyeballs and you've
Other
read.
sources say, blah 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 blah.
That's right.
But they'll bury it. Yeah.
That's right. And that is crucial to your reading of the news every time. The other thing is that the ones decrying like disinfo and misinfo, specifically using those words, not just discussing it in conversation about the obvious stories, but where their defensive point is that's all disinformation against me, I would read as a sign that person, when they're like, I'm being censored, I'm being shadow banned, when they start throwing that stuff up, that you are supposed to believe in that moment that is because what they are saying is true, and they're being attacked because of their truth. We see this with Trump. We've seen this with like right-wingers on Twitter. We've seen it with MTG. We've seen it with Aaron Mate. We've seen it with Jimmy Dore. We've seen it with Russell Brand. Like, that's the defense. That's how it works. They came after me, therefore they must be going after me because I'm telling the truth. Or I was attacked when it was just a criticism. I get criticized all the time.
Other narrative being they're attacking me, but they're attacking me because I'm the one who stands between them and you, and I'm your last line of defense. So if they're attacking me, it's really because they want to attack you. And so,
not only am I taking fire for you,
me.
That's right. Not only am I defending, the truth, but I'm also taking fire for you. The arrows that would be hitting your body, I willfully, prostrate
I will martyr myself.
Yes.
As long as you give me clicks and likes.
That's right. Yeah. Also, my favorite current thing of Russell Brand's thing is the big tech and media are controlling your mind. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the notification bell so you know when these videos are up. I'm like, okay, motherfucker, you're on Google. They own YouTube. What are you talking about? Oh, God, it's so funny. Anyways, don't forget to sign up for our mailing list because we don't want you to be tracked. Oh, God, fuck off. So I'm fascinated by that. I'm curious when you come home, because I know you're following the news over there to some degree, but it is wholly different than turning on the television and just seeing the whole thing all the way through, right? You are seeing the translated, the CNN International. You're seeing news stories translate, put through stuff. I'm curious what you will feel about the narrative and what's going on when you come back. We're going to have to do a test.
Look, since 9/11, I was overseas when 9/11 happened, and I used to come home and turn on the news in the States and increasingly see this growing divide and news being implemented, the rise of Fox, the rise of the right wing, an alternate narrative, and a complete cottage industry of a different kind of news that would speak to a different audience, and then those audiences then would be divided, and those divisions would get wider and wider and wider. And I used to say this to my recently deceased mother before she passed. Every year I would come back and I would spend Christmas with her or whatever it was, whatever reason I came back, every year I would turn on the TV and I would turn to her and say, it's getting worse. It's getting worse. It's getting worse. It's getting worse. And I'm hoping, I don't know where the fever is going to break, but I'm hoping that the fever will break at some point. And I'm hoping that we do reassess how it is we consume information and how news outlets disseminate information. I don't think it's going to happen tomorrow, but I do think a better model has to be discovered, we haven't come up with it yet. But it can't. It's just there's too much white noise.
Yeah,
there's too much chaos and just no solid ground on which we can stand. I mean, there used to. I mean, there is no Walter Cronkite anymore. I mean, you know, there's the famous story of Johnson being in the Oval, and when Cronkite turned against the Vietnam War, he basically said, "We've lost the war."
Yeah.
Because he was such a trusted newsman. There is nobody out there anymore
Right.
who right, left, center, Midwest, Southerner, West Coast, East Coast, Midwest. They all, where everybody says, okay, now there's a guy that I know, even if he gets it wrong, that his intention is, you know, to try and give me the true dope. There
Right.
you go.
Yeah,
Exactly right.
That's what I try to do. I will say, if I may, my concern is that at some point it will be AI. That we are heading, what the fever break would be is some sort of objective reality AI that eventually gets set up as a news aggregate based on material reality, physics.
I've thought about that too.
All that kind of stuff that aggregates based on the best possible thing and is able to create in multiple languages a narrative story of this is precisely what happened. This many people died of this cause and this thing. The genome of the disease that killed them came directly from here. You know, there are still material outlying. We will report more as we have it. And I'm telling you, more than likely, that will be the big switchover. That the Walter Cronkite AI will effectively be the way, you know, people, you know, do it. Until then, it's going to be a fight of personalities and trust, which, you know, isn't that different from how it's always been with humanity. I think partly is we're learning the introduction of digital media and social media to the brain pan of the human being, which is, you know, has not changed any meaningful way in 125,000 years, is an all new method of getting stimulus and information into the brain. And that we're new to it. We are not, you know, in some ways we're adapting very quickly, and in other ways it can be manipulated, you know, in the way that, you know, look at in the arc of drugs. If you look at the 60s as, you know, opening up about drugs and the possibility that psychedelics are beneficial and pot isn't so bad, it's closer to wine, and you know, and you know, material chemical drugs like cocaine are kind of based on this kind of 80s greed mentality, and the sort of the move through the thought form about drugs in a longer time period has slammed head first into fentanyl and was unprepared in its culture and in its standards of quality for the introduction of fentanyl into the drug supply. And the result has been deaths upon deaths upon deaths where people just don't have another shot at it, where it's once is too late. And in a way that didn't impact the culture around other drugs, especially the only comparable early thing I would say is PCP laced weed for a while had that kind of like spike, but it didn't kill you. So the people were able to learn that lesson. Make sure who you're getting your weed from is a trustworthy source, and that it's not laced with anything else. They survived, and therefore they were able to make that change.
I have to run, but I agree with you. I think, look, if there is one thing I can leave the audience with, it is this. And we began talking about Russian misinformation and a purposeful attempt to cause chaos, sow divisions, so you don't know who to trust, you don't know what to believe. That is a Russian program of weaponized information.
Right.
But there's a larger issue at hand, and I urge everybody to educate themselves on how best to consume information, find information sources that you can double check, that you can refer to against other news sources, but take responsibility for the information that you are receiving, and try and be as circumspect and as good a consumer of information as you could possibly be. There is a responsibility on the creator of news to try and give you the information as best they can, and they oftentimes fail at that. but there is also a responsibility as a consumer of news. And I strongly believe that
Agreed.
every person, if you want to be a participant in this democracy experiment that we're continuing to try and build on, you need to be an educated voter.
True.
And in order to do that, you need to figure out how to consume information better.
Right.
So
go take off.
I'm going to run.
Your thing. Yep.
Always a pleasure talking to you. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. I'll leave you for the second hour.
Yeah.
I'm going to go talk to my friends who came from down south, and I'll post or I'll talk to you on Saturday.
Love it.
About whatever it is I learned from them. And hopefully tomorrow will pass quietly. I just heard from Malcolm Nance, by the way. He is safe and sound back in Ukraine.
Right. I just posted that too. He just posted on Twitter.
Literally, just as I was talking with you, he just sent me a text.
Yeah.
He is safe and sound, so that's good.
All right.
Well,
but, tell him I send my love and I wish him well as well, too. So yeah.
I will. I certainly will. Hopefully, we'll have a quiet holiday here. But regardless, I'll talk to you next on Saturday.
I insist.
So thanks, everyone. I'm gonna run.
Take care. See you later,
All the
Phil.
best.
Thanks. There he goes. Thanks, brother. Look at that. That it actually worked. I'm so excited. For those of you that don't know, I sort of struggle about getting, audio and video to and from Chicago on the radio show. And so Phil, that was my first road test of using a different system to get people into the show. So fingers crossed. It sounded cool. It sounded good. I think it looked good. So phew, my Sunday was not wasted. No, it was not, Mark. And it took more than just Sunday. I've been tweaking at this stuff for the last couple hours. Even this morning. So there's still a lot of behind the scenes stuff that I have to do. But it took me Sunday. I really dug into it, and then part of yesterday and the day before. So yeah, troll hunting was easier now. Get neutered. Why is that, John? I know we have some trolls in there today. It's adorable. People, they don't actually think they're upsetting people, do they? It's awesome. Yeah, no sound issues, streamed well, quality, and I'm hoping the audio. I got to test it with Chicago. That's the next big step. So wish me luck with that this week. We've got to do an audio test with them, but for all practical purposes, it should, it should work. There you go. And since Philip came in the tail of this, let me do this real quick. And boink. Biden has tested negative for COVID-19. He's doing well. He's fine. And he posted the test a little bit ago. And now he's going back to the office. He didn't end up going to Walter Reed, I don't think. Yeah. President Biden, there you go. Hold on.
He was severely ill. Thankfully,
hold on 1 second. This is this Biden after, by the way, well-rested couple of days, I have no doubt.
Here's the bottom line. When my predecessor got COVID, he had to get helicoptered to Walter Reed Medical Center. He was severely ill. Thankfully, he recovered. When I got COVID, I worked from upstairs of the White House, and the office is upstairs, and for that 5-day period. The difference is vaccinations, of course, but also 3 new tools, free to all and widely available. You don't need to be president to get these tools used for your defense. In fact, the same booster shots, the same at-home test, the same treatment that I got is available to you. My administration has made sure that all Americans across the country, from all walks of life, have free access to those tools. Here's the bottom line.
Here's the bottom line. When my predecessor got COVID, he was a fucking mess. He sat there with his hair all mangled and his shirt open, a sweaty, pathetic pile. He signed blank pieces of paper. He got in a car, drove around Walter Reed. He clamored and feared for his life. He is still mad at his former chief of staff for saying just how sick he was. There you go. Stranger Things being edited with Stranger Things creators making a habit of tweaking old episodes on Netflix to unsavory character traits. need to be retconned. What? Habit of tweaking old episodes on Netflix, doing so. Okay. Viewers who still have physical copies and know something different odd watching Netflix. In an interview, Duffer Brothers directorial duo confirmed plans to George Lucas a moment in Stranger Things 2 owing to a fan-identified plot hole. Their given reason for the tweak, they didn't want the fans to feel sad or to be mad at them for the negligence. Editing they found TV patches. Do this and stop trying. Okay, stop trying to patch old movies and TV shows, you idiots. Okay, first of all, it's not that old. It's a few years and it's a TV series. I don't care. If people are going to watch it retroactively, it's not like, oh, I missed the holes in it. That's not the same thing as putting a CG Jabba the Hutt that looks like shit in a movie talking to Han Solo when you don't have the technology to do it yet. I don't know that that's the same thing. Ron Johnson's let's see, Milwaukee Bucks ends his bid. It's now between Mandela Barnes and Sarah Godlewski. Okay, blah blah blah. Okay. A Milwaukee Bucks executive Democratic Senate candidate was said to be planning to drop out of the race Wednesday. Okay, all right. There's 3 candidates and they're dropping down to 2. It's going to have to narrow because it's August 2nd, right? Tom Nelson, we ran out of money, so I'm suspending our campaign, endorsing the one candidate that's not trying to buy this election, Team Mandela. We got our campaign this far. Let's get the other Mandela across the finish line to beat Ron Johnson. Cool. Yeah, so they're going in behind Mandela Barnes to get him there we go. Yep. He's the lieutenant governor. He's great. Okay. I mean, they're both good. So we'll see how it pans out. I don't live in Wisconsin, so either Democrat is incredibly superior to Ron Johnson, who's doesn't give a shit about Wisconsin or the country. So I don't even know why it's an argument there. Like, even if they think there's it's a Republican seat, you can't find a better one than Ron Johnson. Jesus Christ. The dude in 2018 flew to Russia to hang out with Vladimir Putin on July 4th. July 4th. Vanessa Leitchi claims that Love is Blind doesn't feature diverse bodies because contestants are insecure, and I'm trying to make it make sense. Huh? Not said Love Blind people through hosting gig next smash it Love is Blind, which she shares with her husband. Sorry, but these shows are awful. The Bachelor, the Real Housewives, all these Love is Blind kind of shows, these like relationship based contests, are fucking gross. All of them. Something about Idaho. Matt Erling Monroe poses for a portrait in a dress made out of Idaho potato sack in 1951. Okay, all right. Well, that is related. I wouldn't say that's outside. Fun in Idaho with the new BRCC jet boat. It looks like they ran aground. Okay. Idaho Sheriff sends dire warning to idiotic Biden officials. We are on the cusp of complete collapse. Is that because of the... hold on. Again, to describe how drug cartels are destroying communities as the what? What's his issue? Obviously, we're on the cusp of war with drug cartels. In Idaho, Idaho Sheriff said his county is experiencing a crisis level of drug overdoses, especially fentanyl and methamphetamine that comes across the southern border. Canyon County, Idaho, Fox Friends, we're at a crisis stage. Quite frankly, we've never seen the numbers of seizures and the amounts of drug, including methamphetamines, like we're seeing in fentanyl. And of course, we're still dealing with methamphetamine crisis we've been in for years. Yeah, the seizure part is what's important. A homeless man, 24, smokes fentanyl in Seattle. Okay, not Idaho, but okay. And he said his numbers, sheriff said these cartels are well established and exist in all communities throughout the United States. Cartels? I mean, there's drug gangs. I wouldn't call them cartels, but I suppose it's like calling the Biden administration the regime. There's not a day or night to go by you're not dealing with someone associated with the Mexican cartels, at least in our community and communities throughout the state of Idaho. We are at war with the cartels. Donahue described how cartels tried to kidnap his then 16-year-old daughter during his time on an FBI gang task force. He said the plot was interrupted before it could be carried out. Families threatened by the gang, by the cartel membership. They tried to kidnap my daughter years ago. She was 16. Thankfully, the case got unraveled before it actually happened. What? Then he concluded the DHS Secretary of America is idiotic for claiming the southern border is secure. Said the administration is hiding from the truth about what's going on at the border. Okay, that's why Fox is having him on. Republicans outnumber Democrats 3-1 there, and yet the new clinic in their town will likely be the only place to offer abortions about 200 miles in any direction. Okay. August 25th, Tennessee and Idaho will have full abortion bans. David Roth is running as a Democrat in Idaho. Yeah, so there's a lot of Dems actually running in Idaho. Which is nice to see. I mean, there's not that many people to convince. I'm just saying, and they've been run by Republicans for a while. So if there's the idea that there's somehow Idaho is particularly damaged by drugs and cartels and whatnot, then why isn't that the responsibility of the Republicans running the state? Just David Roth, not David Lee Roth. It's very important to have the Lee part in there. Oh yeah, this was bullshit.
Where the president have confirmed that there was a meeting that took place in the Oval Office just days before January 6th, where the president requested up to 20,000 National Guard troops be
wrong. That's a lie. Wrong.
Made available for security at the Capitol on January 6th, as the law requires.
Hannity claimed Chris Miller was at that meeting. Here is his testimony.
I want to be clear here that since then, in February of 2021, Mark Meadows said on Fox News that, quote, even in January, that was a given. As many as 10,000 National Guard troops were told to be on the ready by the Secretary of Defense. Is there any accuracy to that statement?
I'm not from my perspective. I was never given any direction or order or knew of any plans of that nature. So I was surprised by seeing that publicly, but I don't know the context or even where it was. So, we obviously had plans for activating more folks, but that was not anything more than contingency planning. There was no official message traffic or anything of that nature regarding.
Just so we're clear, you did not have 10,000 troops or to be on the ready for January 6th, prior to January 6th.
A non-military person probably could have some sort of weird interpretation, but no, to answer your question, no, that was not part of my plan or the Department of Defense's plan.
And just that the rest of his statement was, quote, that was a direct order from President Trump, and yet here is what we see, all kinds of blame going around, but not a whole lot of accountability. And to be crystal clear, there was no direct order from President Trump to put 10,000 troops to be on the ready for January 6th, correct?
No. Yeah, that's correct. There was no order from the president.
Dun, dun, dun. Why do all the best people turn on Trump? He hires all hashtag the best people, and all the hashtag best people always end up just being Democrats who got him coffee. Yeah, this is I retweeted this earlier, but this is his appointee. He put him in charge after the election. He specifically wanted this dude in there. He was brooming people left and right, and other people were fucking off on purpose as well. They were like, he lost, I'm out. And so he was putting people in. Remember when he was adding all those people to DOD leading up to January 6th and in security positions? You're like, why the fuck would you bother? Why wouldn't people write it out? Why would you, and not even like, oh, somebody just resigned quickly, so I'll fill the gap with an acting person. He intentionally broomed people and replaced them with acting members leading that by the way could not be confirmed by the Senate in time and would never ultimately be confirmed by the Senate, period. But we're strictly there just to, just to blow shit up. However, even though he wanted these guys to tell the story and do what they were told, he fucked up again. Remember, Donald Trump is nothing more than a lifelong fuck up. How does Chris Miller still have a job? Any job? I don't know. Here's Kash Patel saying it though. And by the way, Miller lied about it. When was this? Just recently?
Then we pivoted to setting up for January 6th, and Mr. Trump unequivocally authorized up to 20,000 National Guardsmen and women for us to utilize should the second part of the law, the requests, come in. But those requests never did, as you highlighted.
Let me be very clear. Both of you said this under oath, under the threat of a penalty of perjury? To the committee?
Oh, absolutely, Sean. And to be clear, Kash brought it up best. The meeting was one of the serious kind of heavy meetings I've been in, and it was about a foreign threat that was directed towards the United States, which obviously we can't talk to for.
Oh, so there was a foreign threat, and you were calling up 20,000 troops because of the foreign threat. The foreign people were going to do it. But even though it was a foreign threat and Trump was the head of the federal government, even though it was a foreign threat from foreigners, he had to wait for Nancy Pelosi to clear security for the Capitol. Why couldn't he just put them all around the city? Because of a foreign threat, which overrides the rights of D.C. It's one of the reasons it's not a state. Jesus Christ.
About for fear of, ended up in jail. And so I kind of want to be clear.
I want to be clear that I am not under oath right now.
The president, as we're leaving, it says, hey, one more thing. And we all sat back down and we discussed what was going on in January 6th. I don't want to, because I think that's important to bring up so that the opposition doesn't get this idea that this was the purpose of the meeting. The president was doing exactly what I expect the commander-in-chief to do, any commander-in-chief to do. He was looking at the broad threats against the United States, and he brought this up as on his own. We did not bring it up.
He brought up 10,000 troops. Now, this asshole is going to have a rally of folks with no plans, according to anyone, of going to the Capitol afterwards. He's just going to have a rally. And that was that. Now, these people would all be in town, and you might want to do a little bit of, normal crowd control. But the idea that somehow Trump supporters should be seen by DC or Capitol Police as particularly violent up to this point, when they gather in a large crowd, you can have standard security around stuff, but even that was drawn down by the president. But if you would ask for 10 to 20,000 troops, the number is so egregious, the response would be like, why? It's not like there's going to be a march to the Capitol that day. It's just a speech at the Ellipse. Why the fuck do we need 10 to 20,000 National Guard troops in or around D.C. for that? Oh, their video's too loud? I'm sorry. That's Twitter again. Sorry. I will be more on that. I apologize. I need to get like a compressor on there. We'll work on that next. Let's see. Every Stephen Miller speech is basically his fantasy. This is true, yeah. Calling the U.S. a cesspool of crime, Trump spoke of America whose streets are riddled with needles and soaked with the blood of innocent victims. He warned of sadists who prey on children and drugged-out lunatics who attack innocent victims at random, and the dangerously deranged roam our streets with impunity. Yeah, we watched that whole part of it. This guy said something totally different under oath than he said on Hannity, and then this comes out afterwards. I wonder if Hannity's going to have him back on afterwards to go, hey, when the threat of perjury and jail time came up, you actually said something totally different than you said on my bullshit show. Not, yeah. Oh, yeah. And we'll look at more of the Trump speech this afternoon. I don't want to look too far into it. Let's see. The Jan 6 committee is divided on Democrats meddling. That's just because Kitzinger thinks that the local Democrats who are boosting the super MAGA folks because they think they can run against them better is a bad tactic. And you would if you were a Republican, so who cares? 20 Republicans what? Vote against support for human trafficking victims. Gee, I wonder who those would be. There you go. In case you're wondering, yes, it includes a bunch of co-conspirators, Christian nationalists, and of course, alleged sex trafficker maggots. And their reasoning would be, yeah, I has anybody interviewed them on their reasoning? It's very odd. It's curious to me. Looks like a good list for the DOJ. I don't doubt it. Congressional Republicans do anything to prevent progress. It's even weirder than that. Yeah, like Massey, Biggs, Boebert, Green, Gohmert, Gosar, like Chip Roy, Matt Gaetz. Like, this is not a surprise. But are there any? I gotta find it. I want to see any interviews that people conducted with them asking why in the world they voted against this. What could be the reasoning? A satirical tweet discussing a fictional Portland restaurant with separated sections for black and white diners has created confusion. If it wasn't clear, it's clear now. After tonight's vote, the official position of the Republican Party is gay Americans are not free to marry. Right. Okay. A restaurant called Manco in Paris, France doesn't allow black people in segregation in 2022, but folks, y'all, racism doesn't exist. Just dropping a reminder that private Christian schools in the South are allowed to segregation for 22 years. Which one are the... I'm going to shut down. Manufactured outrage over CRT mass mandates is also about the far right's desire to kill public education. Yeah, I mean that's the whole groomer thing is about charter schools and school choice and stuff. It's just another way to get around it. Breaking. A Portland resident comes up with an innovative new way to promote racial equity, creating separate sections for black and white diners. We want to provide a safe place for our diners of color to ease trauma and living in a racist society, the owner said. I think this is what they're talking about. I think this was satirical. Portland, just lost a lesbian bar because they weren't inclusive of, they ate themselves, really. The actual, it was less about, there was this whole thing about, like, whether they're trans inclusive or not and that kind of stuff, which is, I mean, if it's a lesbian bar or cafe or whatever they're doing, that technically you can go there if you're, as a cis male, I could go in there, right? But I'm not going to out of deference to the people there. It doesn't mean that I lose my dignity as a male because that place is not for me. It's different than specifically being segregated from a space. So anyways, but ultimately they went out of business because their own staff did a Marxist take over the ownership and made them demanded that they be given the business, and then it shut down. Guess that it's so weird. That's very Portland. But that's this thing. I think let's see. Apparently this Twitter account uses breaking to signify satire. Why would anyone be confused by this? Yeesh. After public hour, Tim Hortons will allow unvaccinated children to attend summer camp segregated with other campers. I mean, we're past that cycle anyways. The DOJ. Oh, yes, because Trump's getting investigated finally. That's fun. And Mark Meadows. There you go. Justice Department investigators in April received phone records of key officials and aides in the Trump administration, including his former chief of staff, Mark Meadows. Cassidy Hutchinson is cooperating with the DOJ's criminal probe of Jan 6. It's now unknown that it's now undeniable Trump is the target. Yes. Also, by the way, the Secret Service guys who are all set to testify under oath against what denying what Cassidy Hutchinson said. Yeah, they're not doing that anymore. They all dropped out. They're apparently they're now avoiding being questioned under oath. Weird. We love you, Greg Proops. You are good people. All right, and then let's see, latest update in the war in Ukraine. We talked about that a little bit more today. Let's see, everyone in Kiev, people line up to have national symbols tattooed with their donations going to armed forces. CNN spends a day with artists and their customers learning how each tattoo is loaded with meaning. Obviously, all swastikas, just nonstop. New drop of Russian colonialism explainers covers the Russian occupation of Ukraine, states of Kuban and Don in 1725. Tad longer than usual, but only because it's so freaking relevant. What is this? New drop of Russian colonialism explainers covers the Russian. Okay, this is the history of Russia taking over Ukraine as a territory. Yep. Biden, Xi Jinping have a talk today. That's not going to go anywhere. Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Experts say the monkeypox emergency could last months and more. Okay. And let's see. On the left, a miserable Russian first aid kit that I was given as a war trophy. On the right, Ukrainian IFAK complete with gear that we fundraised together. Here's why we need to support Ukrainian tactical medicine. My piece from the front lines. There you go. Oh, yeah, this is the ravers. We saw these guys who held a rave as they were cleaning up this ground. Like, every time we look at these bombed out buildings, the question is always like, man, where do you start? Jesus Christ. Everything is so decimated. Well, apparently it starts with music and people running around, shirtless, picking up garbage. It's kind of great that way. So, let's see. Breitbart was rated. Yeah, okay, here we go. Cartels are earning 26 times more money for human smuggling under Biden than they did under Trump. And what's Biden doing about that? Nothing. Breitbart economy. Referencing Breitbart as your research is defending political talking point is legitimate as calling a witness brother debate. Okay, that's the kind of same thing. There's more Breitbart. I just say what I say and they're upset with me. Joy Behar says I'm their favorite target over at Breitbart and Fox. Anyone gets the news from Breitbart, right? Okay. What's Biden doing about it? Nothing. All right, so let's see. Open that link in a new tab. Cartels get $13 billion a year from Joe Biden's Welcome for Migrants. New York Times. So they're referencing the New York Times, not Breitbart. So the cartels and coyotes are earning $13 billion a year by delivering economic migrants who are boarded. New York Times reported on Monday. According to the July, well, let's look at the actual report. Why do I need Breitbart to read me the news? Smuggling migrants at the border now a billion-dollar business. With demand for smugglers on the rise, organized crime has moved in with cruel and violent results. From the street, little brown house was unremarkable yet pleasant. Bright yellow toy school bus and a red truck hung on the hog wire fence, and the home's facade featured a large Texas Lone Star. But in the backyard was a gutted mobile home that a prosecutor later described as a house of horrors. It was discovered one day in 2014 when a man called from Maryland to report that his stepfather, Moises Ferreira, a migrant from Honduras, was being held there and tortured by the smugglers who had brought him into the United States. His captors wanted more money, the stepson said, and were pounding Mr. Ferreira's hands repeatedly with a hammer, vowing to continue until his family sent it. When federal agents and sheriff's deputies descended on the house, they discovered that Mr. Ferreira was not the sole victim. Smugglers had held hundreds of migrants for ransom there. Investigation found they had mutilated limbs and raped women. What transpired there is a subject of science fiction or horror movie and something we simply don't see in the United States. The prosecutor, Matthew Waters, told a jury when the accused smugglers went on trial, organized crime cartels, he said, had brought this terror across the border. This is the house. But if it was one of the first such cases, it was not the last. Migrant smuggling on the U.S. border has evolved over the past 10 years from a scattered network of freelance coyotes into a multi-billion-dollar international business controlled by organized crime, including some of Mexico's most violent drug cartels. The deaths of 53 migrants in San Antonio last month who were packed in the back of a suffocating tractor trailer without air conditioning, the deadliest smuggling incident in the country to date, came as tightened U.S. border restrictions exacerbated by a pandemic-related public health rule, have encouraged more migrants to turn to smugglers. While migrants have long faced kidnappings and extortion in the Mexican border cities, such incidents have been on the rise on the U.S. side, according to federal authorities. Came as tightened U.S. border restrictions, More than 5,046 people were arrested and charged with human smuggling last year, up from 2,762 in 2014. Over the past year, federal agents have raided stash houses holding dozens of migrants on a nearly daily basis. Title 42, the public health ruling introduced by the Trump administration's beginning of the coronavirus pandemic, has authorized the immediate expulsion of those caught crossing the border illegally, allowing migrants to cross repeatedly in the hope of eventually succeeding. Because we look at the numbers that have increased, it's recidivism is the reason. This has led to a substantial escalation in the number of migrant encounters on the border, 1.7 million in fiscal 2021, and brisk business for smugglers. In March, agents near El Paso rescued 34 migrants from 2 cargo containers without ventilation on a single day. The following month, 24 people were being held against their will, were found in a stash house. Law enforcement agents have engaged in so many high-speed chases of smugglers lately in Uvalde, Texas, where there were nearly 50 such bailouts in the town between February and May. Hold on. Let's look at the... That's right. That some school employees said they failed to take a lockdown order seriously during a mass shooting in May because so many previous lockdowns have been ordered when smugglers raced through the streets. Teofilo Valencia, whose 17 and 19-year-old sons perished in the San Antonio tragedy, says he had taken out a loan against the family home to pay the smugglers $10,000 for each son's transport. Fees typically range from $4,000 for migrants coming from Latin America to $20,000 if they moved from Africa, Eastern Europe, or Asia, according to Guadalupe Correa Cabrera, an expert on smuggling at George Mason University. For years, independent coyotes paid cartels a tax to move migrants through territory they controlled along the border, and the criminal syndicates stuck to their traditional line of business, drug smuggling, which was far more profitable. That began to change around 2019. The acting deputy of U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement told Congress last year the sheer number of people seeking to cross made migrant smuggling an irresistible moneymaker for some cartels. That began to change around 2019. I don't remember who was president in 2019. We'll have to look it up. The enterprises have teams specializing in logistics, transportation, surveillance, stash houses, and accounting, all supporting an industry whose revenues have soared to an estimated $13 billion from $500 million in 2018, according to Homeland Security Investigations, the federal agency that investigates such cases. Migrants are moved by plane, bus, and private vehicles. In some border regions, such as Mexican state of Tamaulipas, smugglers affix color-coded bands to the wrists of migrants to designate that they belong to them and what services they are receiving. They are organizing the merchandise in ways you could never imagine 5 or 10 years ago. Groups of Central American families who crossed the Rio Grande recently in La Jolla, Texas, wore blue bracelets with the logo of the Gulf Cartel, a dolphin, and the word entregas, or deliveries, meaning they intended to surrender to U.S. authorities and seek asylum. Once they had crossed the river, they were no longer the cartel's business. Previously, migrants entering Laredo, Texas, waded across the river on their own and faded into the dense urban landscape. Now, according to interviews with migrants and law enforcement officials, it's impossible to cross without paying a coyote connected to a Cartel del Noreste, a splinter of the Los Zetas syndicate. Smugglers often enlist teenagers to transport arrivals to stash houses in working-class neighborhoods. After they gather several dozen people, they load the migrants into trucks parked in Laredo's vast warehouse district around Killiman Industrial Boulevard. Drivers are recruited at bars, strip clubs, strip joints, truck stops, said Timothy Tubbs, who was a deputy special agent in charge of Homeland Security investigations for Laredo until he retired in January. Rigs hauling migrants blend with the 20,000 trucks that travel daily on the I-35 from to and from Laredo, the country's busiest land port. Border Patrol agents posted checkpoints inspect. Okay. I think the thing that needs to stand. This is remember, New York Times for years. Independent coyotes. Let's see, 500 million in 2018. Estimated 13 billion from 500 in 2018, according to Homeland. Article suggests the 13 billion excludes drug revenue. That's true. The article tried to blame the article tried to blame former President Donald Trump for the 2021 cartel revenue, saying Title 42 of the public health order has led to substantial escalation in the number of migrant encounters on the border, 1.7 in fiscal year, and brisk business for smugglers. Notice that they took out the part about recidivism, about people trying again. See that dash right there? See this dash right here? The yeah, here you go. Has led to substantial escalation and brisk business repeatedly. Yeah, they took out this part. The border illegal allowing expulsion of those crossing, allowing migrants to cross repeatedly in hope of eventually succeeding. Title 42 public health order introduced by the Trump administration in 22 ... has let that ... right there. See that? That is Breitbart taking out that sentence. Why would they, if this is under the context that they're blaming Trump and that therefore this statement cannot be trusted because it's an attempt by the New York Times, who they are piggybacking their story on, by the way. If there's no New York Times story, these fuckers don't have a story at all. They just, it's a barrel edition. They're barnacling on this. But if you're just saying this is the quote from the article and it's all a liar that's just blame, then why not leave that part in? I'll tell you why. Because they know it's true and it undermines it makes this number not look as bad because it points out that it's the same people over and over and over again. Coyotes will deliver perhaps 13,000 foreign children and job-seeking teenagers to the U.S. border in May. Yeah, they don't all cross, but they bring them there. The article is written by experienced reporter Miriam Jordan, but the newspaper's pro-migration editors may have buried the $13 billion news to muffle public criticism of Biden's easy migration policies from criticism. No, you guys edited it. You guys literally cut out a line that didn't fit your narrative. And on top of that, where is it? Yeah. Tightened border restrictions exacerbated by the pandemic public health rule, which is Title 42. But the tightened border restrictions still exist. The newspaper's top editors include Jialin Yang. She's the author of a 22 pro-migration book titled One Mighty and Irresistible Tide. She wrote The Image of the Statue of Liberty, the Emma Lazarus poem at the statue's base, the notion of America's eternal nation of immigrants. These make up an intoxicating part of this country's mythology, set against all of the sins of America's past, from slavery to the removal and genocide of American Indians. The arrival of open-hearted immigrants, grateful for a chance at a new life on our shores, serves as a constant renewal of hope in the American project. If there is salvation for this country, it very well lie in the underlying gratitude of refugees whose life has been saved by the granting of a visa. It just sounds like she's mixing the two complex ideas together. Oh, look who came to say hi. Oh, what's going on, Chipple? What's going on, buddy? Look who's here. Look who came to say hi. What are you doing? What's happening? Hello. Are you walking by my feet? What's going on? Chip just wanted to come by and yeah. Yeah, you good? Chipple, what's the Chipper doing? What's he doing? I know I take the boy. The boy. What are you doing? I'm doing a show. There you go. Little like SMR or whatever, ASMR. I know. Can you, yeah. You're just gonna lay down and play with my cable? All right, that's fine. All right, that's fine. Dick a boy. All right, back to where I was. He's licking my finger. And this is his deputies, chiefly his pro-migration border chief, Alejandro Mayorkas, have also allowed roughly 900,000 additional job-seeking gateway migrants to sneak past the overstretched border. Gateway migrants. I see. These are the ones who are going to come, take a job, and then they're going to bring their families, and then they're going to vote Democrat. A record number of migrants have been killed trying to reach Biden's welcome. That's an interesting way of putting it. UN says of Joe Biden's border is the deadliest land crossing in the world. You think so? Hold on. This is 3rd of July. President Joe Biden's border with Mexico is the deadliest land crossing in the world, according to the United Nations group. More than 1,238 lives have been lost during the migration in the North, Central, and South Americas in 2021. Among them, at least, have been lost during migration in the North, Central, and South Americas in 2021. 1,238 people lost during migration in North America, Central America, and South America in 2021. At least 728 of the deaths occurred on the United States-Mexico border, making this the deadliest land crossing in the world, so the IOM statement, which added the number of deaths on the United States-Mexico border last year is significantly higher than in any year prior before COVID-19. Other than now, IOM report on migrants says, yet this number remains an undercount. The record number of deaths reflects the mass migrations up to the border, where Biden's border chief is dangling work permits and jobs to more than 1 million foreigners. I don't know what the fuck the basis of that is. In 2020, 1/3 fewer people died throughout North, Central, and South America when President Donald Trump rejected illegal immigration, according to the report's data. According to the report's data. I don't think they're putting it that way. I think they're probably putting it that during COVID. Yet during that low migration, low death year, many liberals and business-aligned pro-migration groups loudly protested Trump's life-saving opposition to illegal immigration. These groups also complained that Trump was temporarily separating children from their families, unlike the 51 recorded permanent separations in 2021, meaning the deaths because people were trying to get in the country illegally, which are somehow Biden's responsibility, but the deaths and separations that were permanent, by the way, the 500 some, where they have no idea where the parents are, that Trump did, that's not Trump's responsibility. The IOM is a pro-migration group complete with the motto, making migration work for all. So the IOM is using the June 27th death of 53 migrants in San Antonio truck to demand the U.S. government welcome yet more economic migrants with no regard for the huge costs imposed on Americans and people and migrants. Well, then get Republicans to join Democrats and pass comprehensive immigration reform. Why not? Oh, I see. They tolerate mass illegality in the way of getting around the annual immigration limits set by Congress. Who said this? Hold on. Mark Krikorian. from the director of the Center for Immigration Studies. And the Coyote Run truck and resulting deaths continue because, quote, our U.S. leadership class doesn't believe in the legitimacy of immigration law. You mean like the asylum rules? Just saying. Migrants dying to cross our borders has been a national scandal for more than 2 decades. Blaming Biden is too simple. Where was the outrage during the Donald Trump and George Bush administrations? He wrote July 1st. The 53 dead include 2 teenagers from Mexican state of Veracruz. They paid the smuggling fees, $20,000. Right, this is the people who were in the truck, I think. Right. Takes an investigative committee on the Robb Elementary. Okay, that's different. Tighten border restrictions. Yeah. Anyways, that's the. For some reason, the cartel delivered flow. Okay. Trump has closed the Coyote Run smuggling pipeline that has used federal agencies to deliver 500,000 young migrants to illegal alien parents. Trump has closed the Coyote Run smuggling pipeline that used federal agencies to deliver 500,000 young migrants to illegal alien parents. I see. So they rejoining families. That's what they mean by like starter migrants or whatever. This tilt allows the investors to cut housing prices. Raise families' housing prices. Why does that drive housing prices up? And minimize competitive investment in labor-saving machines that allow Americans to earn more money each day. So this is a big business anti-automation trend. The flood of cheap labor is also recreating a national workforce of child laborers, which had been nearly eliminated in the low migration 1930s. Well, we also outlawed child labor. Reuters learned of underage workers at the Hyundai-owned supplier following a brief disappearance in February of a Guatemalan migrant child from her family's house in Alabama. Hyundai subsidiary has used child labor at Alabama factory. Said a July 22nd report headline. Hold on. July 22? That's. I got July 30. Laverne, Alabama, a subsidiary. Hold on one second. Let's go. Get setting. A subsidiary of Hyundai Motor Company has used child labor at a plant that supplies parts for Korean car makers. Assembly that a family of 3 underage workers, 8 formerly say the factory. Underage workers, in some cases young as 12, have recently worked at a metal stamping plant operated by Smart Alabama LLC. These people said Smart, listed by Hyundai in corporate filings as a majority-owned unit, supplies parts for some of the most popular. In a statement sent after Reuters first published its findings on Friday. Oh, you know Reuters. They're part of the mainstream media. Hyundai said it does not tolerate illegal employment practices at any Hyundai entity. We have policies and procedures in place that require compliance with all local, state, and federal laws. Blah, blah, blah. Smart, in a separate statement, said it follows federal, state, and local laws. Smart didn't answer specific questions about the workers' site in the story or on the job scenes they and other people familiar have described. Reuters learned of the underage workers at the plant following the brief disappearance in February of a Guatemalan migrant child from her family's home in Alabama. The girl, who turns 14 this month, and her 2 brothers, aged 12 and 15, all worked at the plant earlier this year and weren't going to school, according to the people familiar with their employment. Their father, Pedro Tz, confirmed these people's account in an interview with Reuters. Police in the Tz family's adopted hometown of Enterprise also told Reuters that the girl and her siblings had worked at Smart. The police helped locate the missing girl at the time of their search, identified her by name in a public alert. Didn't use her name because of minor. Police force in Enterprise, about 45 miles, doesn't have jurisdiction to investigate possible labor laws. Mike Lewis, spokesman for Alabama Attorney General, declined to comment. It's unclear whether the office of the investigators have contacted Smart. Pedro's children, who have now enrolled for the upcoming school term, were among a larger cohort of underage workers who found job at the Hyundai-owned supplier over the past few years. According to interviews of the past few years, July of 22, she ran away. When would the majority of those past few years have occurred? The past, Okay, so if you're in July 22nd, when would most of the past few years... All right. The company recently said it will expand the United planning over $5 billion investment, including a new electric vehicle factory near Savannah, Georgia. Consumers should be outraged. Cars are being built. Time of use late shorter by chain eruptions. An enterprise home to a bustling poultry industry. Reuters earlier this year chronicled how a Guatemalan miner who migrated to the United States alone found work at a local chicken processing plant. Way too young. Alabama said federal law limit minors under the age of 18 from working in metal stamping and pressing operations such as Smart, where a proximity to dangerous machinery can put them at risk. Alabama law also requires children 17 and under to be enrolled in school. Michaels, who is now a professor at Georgia, says safety. Smart plant builds parts for that. Okay, Reuters review of the record shows Smart has been assessed with at least $48,515 in OSHA penalties since 2013. In late 2020, Smart wrote a letter to the U.S. consular offices in Mexico seeking a visa for a Mexican worker. The letter, written by Smart General Manager Gary Sport and reviewed by Reuters, said the plant was severely lacking in labor and that Hyundai will not tolerate such shortcomings. Smart did not answer. This is in 2020. You dumb son of a bitch. Again, how does this land at Biden's fucking feet? Ugh. Yeah. It's just lazy. Okay, we're almost to we're at the last one. Warnock. Raphael Warnock, I'm guessing. Which is none of the top Senate Democrats refuse to say whether men can get their okay, this is the men can get their period, what's a woman kind of thing. Why won't Republican Herschel Walker commit to debating Senator Raphael Warnock? Because they both have to agree on whether the earth is round or flat, and Walker refuses. In Georgia, Senator Raphael Warnock is in a statistical tie with Herschel Walker, and Brian Kemp holds a slight lead over Stacey Abrams. What are we going to do to get the vote in Georgia? Yeah. Well, the only people slowing the vote in Georgia right now is the TYT crowd. Because it's not about, the, Republican turnout. This is about Democratic turnout. And anybody who's muting Democratic turnout with this idea, like, we voted. We totally voted.
Why won't you commit to a debate?
Well, first of all, Senator Warnock has nothing else to talk about. He don't want to talk about the high gas prices. He don't want to talk about the high groceries. I've told him many times, I'm ready to debate him anytime, any day. I just want to make it for the fans, not about a political party or about some media.
Well, it's got to be on television. It's got to be an actual debate, right? What do you mean for the fans? For the fans? Fans. Voters, you dumb son of a bitch. Like, it's for the voters. The fans. Jesus Christ. The fans. %4 of voters are intending to vote Kemp Warnock. They're Republican independent voters against Walker. Yeah. I would agree that's going to happen. It'll increasingly once they get closer to the race, it'll expand a little bit.
During their debate, they're going to have to negotiate with my people. And it's not just them setting, they got to talk with us as well. I think one thing that people got to remember is I just don't do as they say. I'm running a campaign just like I want to run it. And I told him I'm ready to debate, and whenever he's ready to debate, he tell me the time when it shows up, not the Atlanta Debate Club or whatever they are.
You recently said...
Yeah, it's so weird. Like it's a boxing match or something? The fuck? It's super weird. Mm-hmm. Committed fighting on camera. They're living with HIV and product. I mean, I'm getting. It's easy to get your mind boggled by like Raphael Warnock posting as a normal human being and being able to speak on issues like a politician with an understanding of said issues. Meanwhile, they're running Walker against him, and it's just gibberish. It's friggin' weird. Paul Pelosi's DUI, is that going to be the story on this? Has anyone ever heard of the legendary stock trading? Okay, time is everything. Notable history of buying stocks right before the guy. Right, they've been pushing this whole thing. Biden administration harassing Elon Musk. How are they harassing Elon Musk?
Continuing that, we've got the Biden administration on top of that, also specifically and quite directly calling on social media companies to attack free speech. And all of this is the background of the
gibberish. Pass. Like, it's just so lazy. Provide grants, tax credits, U.S. computer chip manufacturing industry to better compete with China. Oh, good. There you go. The legislation passed. Now it's got to go to the House and come back. 64-32. Another big Biden bipartisan win for the Chips for America Act. They got 4 over the need to break a filibuster. There we go. Chip, what are you doing? What are you doing, buddy? Yeah, the whole thing about this, because 7 days ago, 2/3 of 66 men violated tax rates were Republican. Right, okay. Because signing off, because this bill's supposed to be indicative of, he's a little bit, blah, blah, blah. Here's a bit of fake news going around about Paul Pelosi's $5 million investment in NVIDIA, but NVIDIA is a fabless semiconductor manufacturer. They design semiconductors but don't make them. Fabless companies don't make any money from the CHIPS Act. That is true, actually. They are, it's for the factories themselves. Delivering way to post package. Yeah, okay, it doesn't matter. We need to do them over here. They just basically, if they make their chips in another country, it will, and it becomes cheaper because of subsidies to make them here. They're going to have to relocate. That's going to cost them some money in the process. Oy. Paul Pelosi bought 20,000 shares in NVIDIA semiconductor company right before the expected Senate vote with the same company. This guy's outperformed the S&P for the last 20 straight years. How? Yeah, and again, NVIDIA makes cards. They don't print. They don't actually make the chips. They design what they need. Intended to buy 20,000. Yeah, this is going to be a story for a while. Nancy brings a $52 billion subsidy to the House floor. Nancy should be held and again, how do you not see this move coming to some degree? I've been talking about the growing chip manufacturing in the United States for the last friggin' year. Yeah, and the idea that he wins every time is also ridiculous. They're going to self-select anything out that doesn't support that. And then Ron Johnson, and so this is about the CHIPS Act that will pass. Senate passes Chips and Science bill aimed at better competing with China. This is passed when I talked to Mike. Just a great example. That's awesome. Okay, now he's got a, let's see. Congress is about to give $52 billion subsidy to companies that make semiconductor chips. Meanwhile, Intel, the world's biggest chip maker, had 79 billion in revenue last year. Rob, revenue and profit are not the same thing. And their CEO's pay, 179 million, was 1,700 times that of an average employee. First of all, what designates an average employee in a company as big as Intel? And the average employee is not financially responsible for the rest of the company. The average employee can fucking split. Quite frankly. Like, I get that there's a hierarchy, but this, especially in the tech sector, get out of here. And 79 billion in revenue, again, this is going to move factories back here. You don't get that money if you don't move your factory back to the States. The Senate just passed it, which will lower costs of okay, which is, it's a good bill. Yeah, now it's got to go to the House. They'll vote on it. I'm gonna guess. Just count on all the ones who voted against helping victims of human trafficking. They'll vote against it as well. There'll be a few, a chunk or two of people that will, join the Freedom Caucus in voting against it. But it'll pass the House with little or no changes. And then, it'll go back to the Senate and pass on the same or a slightly greater margin. Earlier today, I was joined by industry and labor leaders. That's a couple days ago. We talked about this, and they had a round table about it. Breaking $280 billion package, which now leads the House, aims to reverse a long-term decline in domestic manufacturing of computer chips that also go into cars, appliances, and other products. This is a huge deal. Is Doug Jones running for Senate? I don't know. Not it wouldn't be this cycle if he was. Hi. Hold on one second. Oh. Love you. Yeah, I know. Glasses look great though. It's good. And my thing with Philip actually worked. I was able to get him in audio wise. Now I got to do a test with Chicago, and if it works, then we're golden. At least till it craps out. It's always something. Yeah. My gosh, this is going to work. So you have to excuse me. Thank you. Okay, love you. Oh, HAL, report on the stock market right now. I have no doubt that the tech sector is going to do well. Yeah, it's up half a point today. This is up along 31,895. It's up 134 points today. 893. Wink. There you go. Oh, 31,93315. Still some fun going on. Okay, NASDAQ's up. S&P is up. Yeah. Down rallies ahead of Fed decision. Okay, is this the idea that they think he's gonna? We'll see. Fed decision. Alphabet, Microsoft earnings minutes. Dow Jones Industrial Average rose Wednesday ahead of the Federal Reserve's interest rate decision. They ultimately get out of here. No thanks. Google. Let's see. Chipotle jumped. Dow Jones today, Treasury yields, stock market rally. Nasdaq led the market lower Tuesday. So okay, we're going back in time. Smart day. Dow rises. Fed decision looms. Yeah, they're the idea is which is weird because the idea is that is he going 75 basis points or 50, and that'll be the debate. They're expecting another 75. And so if it looks like he might curtail at 50, that could create a bump in the stock market, is the idea. Yesterday, it went down 200%. So it's basically humping along right now. People have not made up their minds about what this is going to happen. Yeah, ahead of the Fed meeting. I think the idea is that they're going to. By the way, there you go. Just saying it. It's on the same arc. It's like you almost there's like these little bumps and rallies, but there's this number that just kind of keeps going up like this, like that. Just come on, stop pretending that like it's not regular investment. Yeah, the question is, Wall Street doesn't want the Fed to chill out. They're actually shooting for him raising the basis points, raising his 75 basis points. Is that what investors are uneasy as the Federal Reserve gears up for its latest policy announcement on Wednesday? But their hope is that the central bank and Chair Jerome Powell will keep talking tough, steering the path forward at an uncertain moment. What's happening? The Fed is expected to hike interest rates by 0.75 of a percentage point as it continues. That's 75 basis points to the who's at home. 0.75. 0.10, that would be 10 basis points, just when you hear that language. Now you know. There's been speculation the Fed could raise as much as a full percentage point for the first time in its modern history, but now that looks less likely. Even the more conservative option would have major ripple effects. That would be unprecedented. We've gone with that large move in 2 consecutive meetings. Earlier this month, stocks gear up for the Fed. And to Wall Street, that's a good thing. Investors can see that the Fed has a difficult task at hand as it tries to control inflation without raising borrowing costs so aggressively that it tips the U.S. economy into a recession. But for now, they'd rather the Fed indicate that it plans to keep its resolve rather than adopt a more accommodating stance. In unstable times, the argument goes, consistency is key. So we're talking about, 0.5 to 0.75 rise. The last thing the Fed wants to do now is allow the market to think it's about to embark on a dovish pivot, despite increasing evidence the economy is slowing, which is what they should do. But they don't want him to do what he should do and pivot. They want him to keep doing it because they've invested based on this. They've invested based on what the returns will be at 0.75, not on whether or not it's good. That's because the Fed has worked hard to bolster its inflation-fighting credentials after they called the question earlier this year. By the time the central bank started raising interest rates in March, core inflation, as tracked by the personal consumption expenditures and pricing index, was already at 5.2%, well above its target of 2%. We've just come out of a fucking pandemic. Will you guys stop? So stupid. Yeah. Just checking something out. Hands down, top credit. Oh, yeah, blah, blah, blah. Reddy's another historic rate. Yeah, they're counting on the 0.75. They're counting on, there's probably a lot of puts happening on some stuff to make, that expect to go down. You're not going to make as much on it because they're pricing it in. That's why it's wavering. They're expecting 0.75. If they get 0.50 and they go, we've decided since we went higher last time, we're going to steady it at 0.50 through the summer into the new year. And then if we have to go 0.75 at the end of the year, we'll do that, or we'll do another 0.5. They're expecting it to go 7.5 and then 5 later this year. That's the conversation. If they just say we're on track to do 3 more 0.5s, like that would probably create a rally too. A $9.4 trillion results day looms in a test of the stock market. Fed rate decision precedes busiest reporting day of the season. U.S. GDP, jobs data, as well as German inflation also expected. Yeah, it's going to be a busy day for news. We'll talk about this afternoon. It's 10 minutes after 11, so I'm going to let you guys go and go eat something. And yeah. Oh, it did? 0.75? They just said it? Yep, 0.75. There you go. Stuck right to it. We'll see if they just announced it. Hold on. Let's look at should we watch the Dow Jones? Where is it? Back up. Let's see. I want to see what the Dow does. So they just announced the 0.75. Oh, what an ugly face. What an awful person. The 31851. You think it goes below 851, like, or it just steadies around this? Because it looks like it's just going to go. Blah, blah, blah. There's the announcement. Is that the announcement? Get out. Never mind. This is just today, by the way. There's the 5-day leading up to it. See what I mean? 1 month. What's up? This is the gas price change right here. This is the profitability because of gas prices. 6 months, it's terrible. Year to date, it's down. 1 year, it looks basically like flat. 5 years, it's up. Max, it always looks like that. This was terrible. Remember this? This was the end of the world right there. You want to see another end of the world? There's another end of the world. Here's an end of the world. There's another big. Let's go back to this one. Let's go back to 1987 right here. Oh, there's the end of the world. The stock market was in June 5th of 1987. The stock market was 2,326, and it lost like 1/8 of its value in a month. Yeah, that's as far back as this one goes. The maximum for this particular chart. Meanwhile, yeah, it just looks like the economy is in terrible. Like the stock market's in terrible shape. It crashed. I remember it too. It's always the end of the world when with all these every single one of these spikes was the end of the world to somebody. There you go. That one. Oh, it's terrible. Look at this one. Watch here. A thud. There's another thud. Right there's Delta. And then, oh no, it's terrible. And then it keeps going up. Oh, let's see. What is he doing? Okay, let's do 1 day. What's today's happening? It's pretty stable. Let's reload the page. Basically, nobody gives a shit. 75 basis points. Nobody gives a rat's ass. I remember the crash of 29. That's why I speak like this most of the time. Every down point marks a trader's suicide. Yeah, well, the big dips, absolutely. And there's some hedge fund dudes and whatnot. Yep, stock market is practically begging for a recession. Right. There. Dow sheds more than 200 points after Walmart profit. That's a day ago. That's an hour ago. Live stops rides. Fed readies another start rate hike. The Fed rides with Fed. Look at this. Dow Jones futures rise on Google, Microsoft earnings. Fed rate hike looms, but watch for this. So, oh God, they just know it's going to go up. So they're like, all right, everybody's. I'm going to take the suckers that are going to freak out. Are going to be, there you go. Markets are fairly split between half a point move in September or 75 basis points. Let's see. Yeah. So my guess is that it's going to be they're going to do another 75 basis points in September now and just go that, and then they're done until the spring. And then the spring will be this like, oh my God, collapse moment, just like everybody's been talking about. I find this stuff fascinating. I'm not that involved in it, but as a union member, if you're in a union, you got to know that, somebody's investing your pension fund in some of this stuff. So whether you know what's in the pension fund, you can look, you can ask for a prospectus. I haven't done that in a long time. I should do that. And go through and see what my union is invested in and stuff and see how it affects it. Now, how do we connect with former Trumpers who feel betrayed by it? Oh, how do you connect with former Trumpers who feel betrayed by him? Well, first of all, you start with understanding that, people buy a bunch of bullshit over the course of their lives. You point them to the fact that, like, you know, we have extremists in our party like they have the QAnons and the MAGA crowd, you know, freaks too. It's not, we're all human beings. And what the benefit of the Democratic Party is that for the vast majority of Democratic politicians are simply in the process of making this place work better for everybody. That's it. Just constantly go, look, here's the thing. As a Democrat, I don't even have to like you to want your life to be good. I don't, you know, if I have a feeling though, if honestly, that if your life is better and the solutions presented that, you know, Democrats are pushing get implemented, then that will improve your life. I'm not a Dem, I'm a progressive, but I'm totally aligned with the Dems right now. There is no progressive party. You're a Democrat, Adam. You know, I mean, I don't want to get into the atheist agnostic conversation, you know, that some of those folks have, but yeah, I come here for the optimistic stoicism. Yeah, I mean, if you actually believe in progress, you're going to vote for Democrats for the next 6 cycles without interruption. You're going to be there every single time. You're not going to give any ground to the people who are going to get rid of Social Security because you don't think there's enough. Tell that to TYT, Anna, and Chink. I have many times, and they hate me for it. And you know, fuck them. But yeah, if you want all the things that progressives allege to want, as much as you can actually get them in a democracy, because I'm not going to provide you with a fascistic pathway any more than I would want the other side to have one, then you're gonna end up voting for Democrats for the next 6 cycles. I mean, we need Republicans to clear the filibuster level on tons of things because we only have 48 elected Democrats. Tell you what, when we have 65 Democrats elected, Democrats, actual Democrats, not because we have Sanders and King and they caucus with us, or there's some left-leaning, socially, you know, liberal, fiscally conservative Republicans that we can count on for the vote, blah, blah, blah. I mean, past that, then you're off the hook. But anybody who backs out halfway between one presidential election into into a midterm and goes, well, I don't want to come. I don't know if I'm feeling like they're moving fast enough, and I feel like fuck off with that garbage. It's childish, and it shows a level of like first world privilege. Thanks, Adam. That is privilege. That is the very definition of it. The fact that you think you can do a protest vote when we have 48 Democrats in the Senate, when we have a 10-vote margin in the House. I mean, is there more an example of like elitist, privileged, navel-gazing egotism than that? I mean, it's something I expect from like, a high school communist or sovereign citizen, like libertarian teenager. But a fucking adult? I mean, these are the kind of people who go to the gym once and then blow it off. It doesn't work. I went to the gym once. I came back sore. I didn't see any difference. I'm not going again. True democracy and the issues you care about take constant gardening. And if you're not committed to them, then you're not committed to the ideas at all. If you're half-assing between stuff like, these guys aren't moving nearly fast enough with the 48 seats that they have, the fuck out of here. Like the argument even that there's, it's just so infantile and grotesque. Yeah. I take off. I will see you guys later on this afternoon, 3 o'clock for HAL Sparks Mega Worldwide. I appreciate you guys joining me for the morning show and helping me test out new tech. so I can have guests on with some regularity, and it works a little bit better in the context of what I'm trying to do. I appreciate you guys more than you know, and I will see you guys later this afternoon, 3 p.m. Pacific time. Hal Sparks Mega Worldwide. Share the show, like and subscribe, give a thumbs up, all those kind of things. You do not have to turn on the notification bell because I will be here. I don't need to track you. You can join in this show and subscribe and be a part of it if you want to, and I will ask you to, but that's it. There you go. Peace and be well.